Welcome. My name is Marian Mansler. I am the program manager of education here at the Loft. Before we get started, I just want to introduce myself. I'm a Filipino American woman wearing a purple sweater with my corkboard. Can't really see it, but endless to-do list behind me. Um, Not pictured, my dog is sleeping at the little bed beneath me. I invite my colleague Jack to introduce himself before we get started.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jack. I'm an education associate here at the Loft Literary Center. I am a white male presenting man wearing a fun multicolored sweater with a blurry corkboard background behind me as well.
Great. And Junauda.
Hi, I'm Junauda. I am wearing a black do-rag and bright red lips and a black hoodie. And I have a periwinkle background with some collage artwork. And I'm a caramel brown skinned Black woman.
Thank you. Jack invited y'all to share a little bit about yourselves, but in the chat, if you want to share your name, where you're zooming in from, what genre you're interested and or what your writing goals are, I invite you to do so just to get a little conversation going. And today we'll be reviewing the program as a whole. I have some testimonials from students who have been in the fiction and poetry project in the past. You'll hear from mentors, and we'll go over some administrative details and save some time for questions at the end. So a little bit about the Loft. This is our 50th year in existence, and the Loft's mission is to advance the power of writers and readers to craft and share stories, to create and celebrate connections, and to build just life-sustaining communities. And the year-long writing project, I think, is a huge part of that as we continue to strengthen our own practices and connections within the community. So a little bit about the year-long. We have the Loft's Poetry Apprenticeship led by teaching mentor Hieu, Minh, Nguyen, and it's for anyone who wants to complete a poetry collection. It begins Tuesday, June 10th, and goes through April 2026. The Loft's Fiction Writing Project, which is led by teaching mentor Junauda Petrus, is for anyone who wants to work on a book-length fiction project. That begins Saturday, June 7th, 2025, and ends in April 2026. Both programs are for any writer of any skill level from beginner to those who may consider themselves more advanced. To that end, there will be folks who will be coming in with a variety of skills and experiences with writing in the workshop process, as well as those who maybe are further along in their career, who maybe have an advanced degree and feel they are already quite adept at writing. We feel that this is a strength of the program, which is designed to meet writers where they're at and guide them through the process of writing, revising, and completing their book-length projects through community learning, mentorship, and acknowledge of each and every person's artistic achievement through the support of a final reading at the end of the program. It's not an application-based program, meaning you don't have to submit a work in progress in order to be considered for admittance, though sometimes, you may review some work in advance with a teaching mentor, or that it's based on accomplishment or significance of creative work. It does, however, require that you have your first one-on-one meeting with either Junauda or Hieu before the program begins in June. So that you have an opportunity to talk about your project, your needs as a writer, and whether this project is a good fit for you. So what does that look like? Well, as I kind of mentioned, you have the craft instruction and mentoring. You've got a small group workshop, 12 people max in your group. There's opportunities for individual study and breaks. Throughout the year, we'll have visiting authors, publishers, agents, editors come through and support you and share some of their insights. You'll hear a little bit more about that in a bit. There's an opportunity to have your full manuscript reviewed by the teaching artist, as well as opportunities for one-on-one consultations and meetings. And then there's the final public reading. So we come together at the end of the program and get to hear from your work. There's also opportunities for cross-programming. So as you can see here, lots of upcoming events. I just wanted to share a couple of ways to get involved at the Loft beyond just even the year-long. I send out a pretty quarterly email that shares information about things coming up, exclusive opportunities, things like that. So just one of the many ways to get involved in our programs. So the both cohorts, fiction and poetry, they start in June. So Saturday, June 7th for fiction and Tuesday, June 10th for poetry apprenticeship. There's an orientation at the end of May. And generally the schedule goes along with our terms. So there's a summer term, which is 8 weeks, and there's a break. Then you've got your fall term, which is 12 weeks. Then there's a break. And then the winter term lasts for 12 weeks as well. So you meet each week during the schedule, 3 hours each of those weeks. So it is a commitment in terms of time and everything else. And then you have your final reading in April of 2026. Okay, so I would love to, I'll take this off screen share, but we have some folks in the group who have done the year long in the past. So we'll hear from Heather, who was in the novel writing project. Or sorry, Dan, you can go first. I forgot Heather is not here yet.
Hi, yeah, I've done writing a lot for some decades now, and different kinds, short stories, sketch comedy, everything, and I've written some novels and everything like that. And I thought I really knew a lot, but when I took the novel writing class, it just really brought my whole my skill set, just raised it up a tremendous amount. It was a really unbelievable experience. Our teacher was fantastic, and what I understand is all the teachers at the Loft bring in are just incredible people, and really dedicated to their craft and being a teacher, really enjoying the process. And so that's the number one thing that really helped me was our great teacher, but then also getting together with a group of fellow students who are as committed as you are on your work. And so when we would do our phases of our work of our project, and it would be presented to the group, each student would give feedback, and it was really, really amazing feedback. Really, everybody was really intelligent and thoughtful, but it was a fraternities together where we were all together in the same thing, supporting each other. And since our class ended, we've continued to stay together and meeting once a month and just talking about writing and everything like that. So I've been involved with writing groups in the past, but this one has been the one with the best quality of the people involved with it. So it really, I can't express enough how much it's meant to me to be in this group with these people and this teacher.
Thank you, Dan. And Dan will be around as well to kind of answer some questions during that section. So I have some testimonials from Leah Sherman, who was in the poetry apprenticeship last year. And I'll share these slides for y'all because I know it's a lot of text. But essentially, when I asked Leah about her experiences, she said that the program has provided structure, community, and momentum for her writing. It offers both learning opportunities and space to create deepening my understanding of poetry as well as my own writing. It's positive and supportive, while also challenging me with new ideas and approaches. Um, and like so many of the others who have spoken, having that structure and deadlines has encouraged her not only to write more, but also to edit and organize her poems, and has made her more accountable to her own writing and study of poetry. Um, it's a gift to be with a group of writers and with a mentor who understands poetry, from whom I can learn and also share my passion for making art with words. And what did you think about when applying? I had to decide if I would commit the amount of time it would require, whether giving up time with my family was worth the trade-off, and whether I thought about what I would gain from the program that I couldn't achieve on my own. So definitely all things to think about when committing to a program like this. Um, so the thing that you were probably here for is to hear from Junauda. So I'm going to let Junauda speak to the fiction writing project and yeah, hear a little bit from her.
Hey there. Here, sorry, let me pull up my thing. Um, Yeah, so I'm really excited to be working with this cohort of fiction writers. I'm a fiction writer who has a background in poetry and playwriting and screenwriting. I also am a performance artist and do a lot of types of art. And I also love writing fiction. And I think fiction is a way to sort of just include all of what I'm passionate about into these narratives and stories and spirits and characters. And that's the space I want to cultivate with students is how do you bring all of who you are creatively, and really allow just a space of juicy generativeness as a writer in general. And I think from that space, there'll be a lot of beautiful possibility that, then could be shaped into a book-shaped thing, as my editor said. I think so many times with writers, we can get in our heads, and it's such a heady and cerebral and a place of solitude with the page as a writer. And I'm a person that likes to invite the body and the storytelling of the body and remind us that there's knowledges and wisdoms and stories in our toes and our kneecaps and our hips, all of these places. Um, and yeah, and that writing and art making should be pleasurable, should be therapeutic, should be meaningful, should be soulful, and writing the best piece of work that you could write is, and when I mean best, I mean like most satisfying, most grounded in your vision and sort of who you are as a creative person. Um, I think that's, definitely the first step in what it is to be a published author. I think that oftentimes there's a pressure to be like, well, how will I get published? And how will I get published? And I think that's a very I think it could be a stifling sort of dynamic to have with your writing, because there's like a gazillion ways to share your work and get it published, honestly. Um, and it's kind of like, I don't know, I've never given birth personally, but I do have a kid. And it's like every experience with every kid is just like, oh, that's what it's going to be. It has its journey. You can't even like sort of figure that part out. And I think so many times there's so many articles that's like how to write the next best-selling novel and how to do all of these things. And I think that's just not stuff that anybody can manufacture. But you can write the dopest, most satisfying, most pleasurable, most weird, quirky, essentially you piece of work. And also develop community of people to like agonize and talk shit about, oh my God, I'm not writing. Why am I not writing? Oh my God, how do you feel about your writing? Because us writers, we're just like totally angsty. And also like big each other up and be like, listen, you doing that. These pages is hot. Oh, this is interesting. So part of what I've been asked to do is speak on just sort of the ways that I will have my classes run. And a part of it is, as I shared, working on on embodiment and mindfulness as a component of a writing practice. And I think workshops where we share from spaces of curiosity and also a space of care. Like this isn't a space to sort of, feel like, ooh, I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna give these notes, or ooh, I want you to be rough to me with my writing. It's like, part of it is like, yeah, like it's already so sensitive and vulnerable to share work. So I do feel like a lot of it is like, how are we a space of safety, be a resource for creative opportunities and play dates, explorations, remind each other that writing should be fun and nerdy and curiosity led, and also develop mutual mentorship. I think there's so much I learn. I teach, kids in elementary school. I teach, astrology people on some arty stuff. I teach a lot of different writing classes. I teach in prisons. I teach, elders, all kind. And I just think there's so much we have to learn from each other. And I want to create a space of that being a conducive thing. Um, yeah. I, Marianne, I know at one point you also wanted me to share about like the logistics of a session, but let me know if there's anything I'm missing or, if I'm good.
Do you want to share maybe some folks who might be coming through your cohort next year? Or the
Yeah, so I really wanted to give whoever ends up in the cohort to kind of help me figure out who to invite. Like, I have friends who are brilliant writers, some folks I thought I could ask. Is my friend Candace Elo, who's another tremendous young adult writer who writes in lyrical form. My friend Joseph Earl Thomas, who's a very generative writer and has written some fiction, great fiction and memoir and stuff. um Carvel Wallace, who I just think he's so brilliant. He's such a good writer. Y'all know, see, literally when I talk about his writing, my eyes roll back in my head. I'm like, oh my God, he's such a good writer. And then Alexis Duveau is just like, a witchy writer. Like she's just so like she'll galvanize you about what it is and why we write and why, like she gets to the spirituality, I think, of what it is to be a writer and an artist. Shannon Gibney is a local darling, super generative young adult writer, children's author. Sharon Bridgeforth is somebody I could ask, who's a very beautiful experimental writer. And then Andrew Carr, who's my editor, who I've worked with at Dutton Penguin, he's just such a sweetie. He's very much a nerd, a writing nerd. He reads so much books and things and edits and all. He's so smart and he's like a good midwife. You give him birth to your book and you're like, hold my hand, and he coaches you and you're like, oh. So I think, he's just a good person to ask questions to, maybe from the perspective of, yeah, like his role in the process of helping books come to the world.
Do you have any sample texts or texts that inspire you in your approach?
Yeah, I feel like I've been really thinking about Ento Zake Shange lately. This is actually the 50th anniversary of For Colored Girls Who Considered Suicide When the Rainbow is Enough. And I'm currently working on a novel that takes place in the 90s. And part of my coming into myself as an artist in the 90s as a Black teen was through this particular play. And I think about the ways that in her writing, she writes the way people speak, and then she also writes in this other poetic, self-made dialect. I love how even the title of For Colored Girls Who Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough. I love that it was a long title. I love that it like talked about suicide, and sadness and being a Black girl and the rainbow. Like I felt like she was able to be like, this is in your face. And I think for me, especially in this moment, this political moment where we're definitely in a fascist takeover in a country, and it's coming for our arts. It's coming for the writers. And I think there's a way that it's tempting to be like, oh, like I, for example, my novel, my young adult novel is banned, and I'm like, y'all trying to ban me? Y'all trying to ban me? Okay, y'all finna get more of me. I'm gonna give y'all
Uh,
something to ban, and I definitely feel like there's a way, yeah, like I think that us as artists have to insist on making the art that's important
Mhm.
and, bold and speaks all the kinds of truths. So yeah, I don't even remember the question. I
No,
got
that was
influence thinking about this world. But Wisconsin pulled up, Cory Booker, like, people are using words to resist. And, so anyways, I feel like this is also a space where I want us to be, you know, I mean, it's not going to be a political space, just to be clear. Like, I don't really want to get bogged up in that per se, but I'm not going to deny the moment we're in as writers, because I do see writing as a part of like a bigger soul practice, community practice, and, whatever. So, you
I
know,
love that you give space to just how people need to show up, and so I appreciate that.
yes.
Um, yes, there will be time to ask Junauda some questions at the end, so don't worry. Hugh was unable to make it today, but he shared a video that I will play for y'all. This is for the poetry apprenticeship. 1 second. Make sure I can share my sound. Okay, let me know if you can't see this video.
Hello, everybody. My name is Nguyen. I am the poet mentor for this year's year-long writing project through the Loft, which starts this June. I'm sorry I can't be there today. At the time you are watching this, I will be in the middle of teaching a class, which is why I wanted to make this video, to introduce myself and to talk a little bit about what you might expect from our year together. I'll start with just some background information on myself. I'm from Minnesota, which is how I got introduced to the Loft. I started writing poetry when I was in the 8th grade. I started attending events and programs hosted by the Loft in the 8th grade. I started identifying as a poet when I was like 14, which is a weird thing for a 14-year-old to identify as. All of this is to say that I've been obsessed with poetry for over half of my life. I have written 2 books of poetry, one published in 2014, one published in 2018, and I just finished writing a draft of what will hopefully be my 3rd collection of poetry. Yeah, and with each book, I've had a very different journey with each book. One book took 1 year to write. One book I wrote over the course of 3 years, and this current book has taken me around 8 years to produce a draft. Yeah, and so I feel prepared and ready to meet you at where you're at in your journey. What else? Oh yeah, I no longer live in Minnesota. I live in the Bay Area, where I teach creative writing at Stanford University, which is not why you should trust me. I've taught at I've taught in academic spaces. I've taught in non-traditional learning spaces. But one thing that I like to center in any poetry space that I'm part of is like a sustainable practice. Um, I think that anyone who signs up for this course, uh, the goal is to walk away with a publishable manuscript, right? A manuscript ready to send to publishers. And I think that's great. But I want us to think about the book not as the goal, but as like a consolation prize that we get at the end of this journey, where we cultivate like a community of people who are just as invested as just as invested in bringing someone else's book to life, that they are their own. you know, in this journey, I hope to demystify, right, the publishing process. I hope to help you all develop a sustainable writing practice. I think that, you know, as writers, we sometimes buy into the idea that a writer's life is like a lonely one. And I think like solitude is part of it, right? Sometimes it requires solitude to like write and incubate. Um, but poetry is also like a team sport. Um, Making a book is a team sport. By the time a book is made, so many hands have touched it. And yeah, I think that part of building a sustainable practice, not just for this book, but for the one after and for the one after that, is knowing that you aren't alone in your journey. Yeah, and so I'm excited to start this process with you all. Yeah, and excited to give your poems the life they deserve. All right. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.
Oh, they're just so amazing. Some of their visiting writers and publishing professionals that they've mentioned, Erica Stevens, Safia Elo, Perry Janes, Sam Sachs. So some really amazing, amazing folks. Okay. A couple more things and then we'll get into some Q&A. So again, you know, if you have other questions beyond this meeting, my name's Marianne Manzler, happy to help. We have two Loft Education Associates, Giselle Hayes, Jack Harris, who are available. You can always reach out to us at edu@loft.org if you have any questions about the year-long that come up after this meeting. So the cost of the program is $7,500, and the part of this process includes you meeting with the teaching artist, um, before the cohort begins to ensure that your project is a fit and that this is the right option for you. We have payment plans available. We also have access funds available. So those are two fully funded spots per cohort. There is an interview that is part of this process if you make it to that finalist round. And we work really closely with each teaching artist to determine those spots. We ask that if you do apply to access funds, that you apply to access funds only. And the deadline for that is April 18th. Jack, can you drop the link to the Access Fund application? Thank you. Regular registration opens in April 9th and 10th, so next week. The cohorts tend to fill up quickly, so I encourage you to sign up quick. And you can always follow up with us for more information. A little bit about the application for the summer, for the year-long Access Fund application. It's a couple of narrative questions around sort of financial need, community need, and your project, and a short writing sample. But to apply to just the regular, you know, registration, you don't need a writing sample. All right. Any questions? Feel free to unmute or drop it in the chat.
Can I? Oh,
Yeah. Noel?
yeah, yeah.
Noel?
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. I'm really excited. Just to clarify what you just shared, Marianne. So if we are applying for the access funds, then we should not apply for the regular registration so that there's only one application floating around them.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Yep. And yes, Jack is also very knowledgeable about the Access Fund process and can answer any questions there. Thank you for that question. Hey, Paul.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, everyone. So I was writing notes, Marianne, as you were laying out some things. So I just want to make sure I've got this down right. So we would register for the application on the 9th or shortly thereafter. And then there would be an initial conversation, and then a decision is made, and then payment is taken, and that's how it works at this stage.
Correct. Yep.
And then the other follow-up, thank you for that. The other follow-up is, again, sorry, I missed this. The initial application on the ninth, a writing sample then or later on?
So for the Access Fund, is that what you're
No,
asking?
not for the Access Fund, just for the straight application on the 9th.
So on the 9th, that is just a sort of, it looks like a wait list where you just give us your contact information, and you join that list, and then we get you in contact with the teaching artist so that you can have that initial consultation before the cohort begins.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Great question. Any questions for Junauda or any of the folks who have taken the year long before? I also did the creative nonfiction one, so I can speak to that experience.
Just personally, what some folks who have done the cohorts, like what is your favorite piece of writing or your favorite like moment that came out of your year together?
That's a great question. For me, it kind of came, I would say, in the middle. So kind of, after I had gone through a workshop already, and you're just in the thick of it. And it's easy to lose sight of the goal and to just kind of recommit to that and to my fellow cohort members and their projects. I think that really, I don't know if it surprised me, but it was, I don't know, it felt really good just to have that consistent structure. Um, yeah, and to look at work in new ways that I hadn't initially thought of.
I have another question for Juanita, if I may. How often do members of the cohort do we present our work and workshop it? Is it like a set number of times? How does that process work over the course of the year?
Yeah. Hi. Oh, it's pronounced Junauda, by the way. My middle name is Juanita, so it's confusing.
Sorry.
No, don't apologize. So yeah, or yeah, sure, apologize. What was I gonna say? I think that is something I kind of want to figure out with the cohort because part of it is like, people might be ready with something to look at right away. Some people might want some time to get some writing in before we start looking at things. I kind of saw the first session as a session of just kind of going in on generation and not getting feedback just yet. Like people might want to get a little bit here or there, but yeah, I kind of just wanted to get people in a rate of flowing and then also checking in with people. Some people might be like, oh, if everybody in it has a majority of a manuscript completed, then I'll be like, oh, okay, cool. Let's kind of get more into the workshopping process. But yeah, the way I kind of see it is that I just kind of want to get people thinking about initially setting themselves up to be just as generative and grounded in a writing practice to begin with, so that um, by maybe the second session, we could start looking at people's manuscripts, or, initially maybe we do a chunk of pages, that feel maybe a little bit more refined. And then towards the end, I just know like it is going to be a lot of reading and a lot of writing. And I kind of want to be strategic because, in my experience, kind of refining several chapters can give you a certain kind of momentum as to what the project will be overall, as much as trying to finish a manuscript and having people edit over. And like, I just think it would be, I want to give people an opportunity to read other writing in addition to those in their cohort, as well as just have a lot of time to write. Like I think I want to sort of come up with a balance of reading and writing and meeting up and stuff like that, that's mutually consented upon with everybody in the group, as being like, all right, well, how do we want to, sort of lean in? And it might be a slightly different for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a question for the awesome poetry mentor who isn't here. But I'm wondering how Hugh is thinking about, since they're in the Bay, and maybe not all of us will be in the Twin Cities actually, but will there be opportunity for people in the Twin Cities to build community in physical space and maybe go to the Bay and hang out with Hugh, or Hugh will come here and hang out with us?
That's a great question. So the cohort itself is completely virtual. It's 100% virtual. There have definitely been opportunities to be in person. We had a couple of sort of like community meals that we did this past year, where we zoomed in some folks and, used physical space and open book. So there's always capacity for that as it works out for the cohort and as you sort of work with your, teaching mentor to get those scheduled.
Can I interject on that point? For the novel writing class this last year, it was obviously all Zoom calls, and we had people all the way from West Virginia out to California. And when I mentioned that we continue to get together, we continue to get together via Zoom, and it's worked out really well for us that way. So when I went into it, I was like, oh, is this going to work, being all Zoom? But it did. It worked really well. So.
Yeah, and actually with my cohort, a couple of us still meet each week, very informally, but it's really nice to have that connection.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
And please correct, is it Junauda? How do you pronounce your name? Oh, nice. Yeah. So my question is, I know it's called the fiction project. I'm assuming that means you're open to novels, short story collections, young adult. Is open to anyone, or any of the above?
Yeah, definitely. I write I've written in all of those spaces. And I think a lot of it is kind of gonna be like I want people to kind of set up what they want to do. Like if someone's like, yo, I want to do you know, um a short fiction piece and just one piece and really refine it and get it really strong. If I want to write a novella, if I want to begin a novel or work on a novel, um, I want to help everybody sort of come up with what sort of intention and plan they have and come up with the strategy, as well as, again, just sort of creating this like momentum and relationship with your writing that allows you to, yeah, just like fulfill anything that feels like your personal goal. I keep on leaning into just like the writing practice itself because I've just experienced in my own novel writing, it's such a marathon experience. And I think that, there's people who sit down and write a novel in 3 months. There's people who write a novel in 30 years, and all are great pieces of work. There's a total art form and mastery to doing a short story. Like, I think it might be, also wanting people to lean into figuring out their voice and figuring out their process, and also knowing that people who've written several novels, it seems from what I've heard, have a very different experience for each novel. So I feel like I want to develop a dynamic with a writing practice that doesn't feel prescriptive or what's the word? Yeah, kind of like having a expectation that sort of can yeah, sort of undermine a beautiful relationship with writing. So yeah, I think whatever you're into. And also too, like I love what's happening in writing right now. I think there's just so much genre bending and weird stuff. Like I just started reading a young adult novel by A.S. King. Gosh, what's it called? I don't have it. I just got it from my editor. But she's doing so much weird shit in the young adult. Like it's so weird. And I love it and I'm with it, you know? So I also feel like you might come in and even if you're a person you're like, yo, I've written songs my whole life. Like if you want to write a novel in a song form, you know, like I just think I want people to be surprised by what happens with themselves and the writing. And I think there's a lot of examples of that, definitely in young adult fiction. I feel like young adult low key be out here, right? Like we like the young adults be just doing the things. And then of course, like fiction, it's fiction. You can do whatever you want. So I'm like, I welcome it all. I welcome it all.
Yeah.
I love that. And actually, in Allison McGee's fiction cohort that just ended, um, a couple of the fiction projects turned into memoirs. And so that happens. Like you come in with one project and it turns into what you need. So it's very flexible.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm really excited by that openness to it. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that question.
Great question. And hey, Heather. Heather is one of our past alumni. Heather, did you want to speak to your experience at all or share anything you learned, or wish that you knew when you were in that process of figuring out, yeah, what if you're going to join?
Sure, thanks. Hi, I'm Heather Zaring, and I was in the year-long fiction project in 2024, working on a novel. And in ours, it was novel focused, so I think that might be a little bit different from what I just heard. But I thought a long time about this and how I could make space for this in my life, and also how I personally needed that structure and needing somebody to ask me what I wrote last week. So it was just very helpful to be in a group with some momentum and some guidance. Learned a ton from my peers and our teacher as well. Everybody gave so much, even in terms of their writing, but then also in terms of their feedback. And of course, I tried to do the same. And was able to write a first draft and a second draft of the novel during this time, and I'll be working on the third draft this year. And then one thing I would say too is just make sure that you have kind of organized your life so that you can dedicate the time that you'll need to this. It wasn't, I didn't think it was overwhelming, but it was important to be able to set the time aside and make sure that I was having a consistent schedule of writing days, reading days, a day of rest, like all those things I think are important, at least for me. So I would advise you to think about that, how that's going to work in your life in the next year if you decide to do this. But it was wonderful. I'm so glad I did it.
Thanks, Heather. It's so amazing.
Thanks.
Hi, Lorraine. Heather, or anybody else. So how much time do you think you dedicated in a week to the year-long project?
I think it was probably 10 hours or so. So kind of like a part-time job or internship or something. So yeah, it would be like 2 hours a night usually for writing, but if it wasn't going well, longer than that, or if I was, trying to figure something out. And then the reading took a fair amount of time too. I'd say 10 or 15 hours. How about you?
Oh, sorry.
Dan,
April?
I think, sorry.
Sorry, Heather. Go
No,
ahead.
I think I was just going to say, Dan, I think I remember you saying before that you took a good amount of time as well on your work.
Yeah, but I'm retired and I'm so into it that I would spend like 25 hours a week on it, just on my writing for the class, and then also with reading other people's works. Heather pointed out that reading other people's works is a really neat and important part of the class. And so I learned a lot by reading Heather's works and the other people, and so it helped watching their experience and their hurdles that they were going through and how they resolve things. I learned a ton from that. And so yeah, you've got your reading, but then also or you've got your own writing, but the reading part of it of other people's stuff is really, really important. And I wanted to mention too that as far as a piece of the class that was really, really neat and for me was meeting and talking with like the editor and the other writers that came in, guest writers that came in and talked about their whole experience, and the agent that came in, just all these people in the professional side of the business, and it kind of took the mystery away from that part of the whole thing for me. And so I was really glad to be able to do that.
Thank you. April?
Hello, everybody. I'm a little tardy to the party, and so you may have already gone over this. I do want to start with saying congratulations, Junauda, for being the Poet Laureate and for your wonderful book that is right now being talked about, and also the book of the month for Hennepin County Public Libraries. In case you guys didn't know that, any library anywhere, you can go and talk about it. So anyway, the question that I had, as someone that has been learning more to write, and so I still consider myself a beginner, what would the structure look like? And is it all together? Is the novel, the creative nonfiction, the poetry, is it all offered together? Or are there separate instructors or leaders for each section, or are we all going to be together?
That's a great question. It's separate sections. So Junauda has a cohort that meets on Thursdays. There are some Saturdays in the summer. And then Hieu's cohort meets on Tuesdays. And then there are some Saturdays in the summer. So you would choose one or the other. You would choose fiction or you would choose poetry.
And if you are not sure, might there be any some suggestions that could help someone clarify or kind of figure out without telling them, but like maybe some questions we can ask ourselves?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm available. We have 2 education associates who are happy to help coach you as well. I can drop my email in the chat. Junauda, if you're open to putting your email in the chat, you can always ask her some questions as well if you want to kind of just get a little bit more clarity. But always available. Great question, April.
Yeah, and I don't, yeah, as far as the structure of how I'll be doing the fiction aspect, a lot of it is initially just kind of getting people grounded in a writing practice, and yeah, just kind of finding what sort of, needs and shapes of projects the students are doing, and just kind of tailoring and structuring towards what people goals are. Definitely want to get people generating as much as possible in the first session. And if people have, manuscripts and things to read, we could start workshopping, but definitely wanting to kind of set that up. And then throughout the structure of the rest of the class, just really, yeah, kind of like honing in on what the project is, what the voice is, yeah, supporting people through any obstacles or challenges. So yeah. Um, and also, yeah, like I think there's a lot of different things I want to explore in just reading people's work and, doing just different experiments and whatnot with writing. So yeah.
There's a question in the chat about final readings, and they are separate. So the poetry reading is separate from the fiction reading, to ensure that everyone has time to, yeah, share from their work. Laureen, did you have another question?
Yes, I did. So let me see how I can ask this question. So, how does the law and how teachers and is there an expectation? So I'm actually looking to be to apply for Huey's um, um, cohort, and so will that be self-paced and determined with the teaching artists? Like, oh yeah, by the end of the year, you should have 40 pieces or 80 pieces or whatever that looks like. So it's a two-part question. How does the law plan um, assist the student with accessibility needs? And then two, is there like a goal or is that based on the individual of how much materials to be produced?
I think it cut out a little bit in the beginning, but I think let me know if I didn't catch the full question. So, in terms of accessibility, if there's any accessibility accommodations requests, you can email edu@loft.org, and we'll work with the individual on those accommodation requests. We usually ask that the request is made at least 3 weeks in advance of the class when possible, so that we have time to get together what needs to be done. And then in terms of the second question, which was around, I think, sort of, goals for the individual around writing and production. So that is sort of a, case by case scenario. You'll work with the teaching mentor on, what your goals for the course are. There's no prescribed, like, you have to make this number of pages by the end of the project. The goal is to create a cohesive product, or sort of like end piece, but yeah, there's no determined page count. Great questions. Any other questions for us? This has been wonderful to get to know y'all. I'm really excited for these two cohorts, these two amazing teaching mentors, and for you to get to know them, work with them. Oh, Jack, I just saw. No, we do not grade any work as part of this, either one. No grades. Really, you're grading yourself. It's more of you're working with one another, and I think the beauty of each cohort is that you are sort of holding yourself and each other accountable to the work. So there is that, yeah, kind of give and take, but luckily we are not, yeah, grading anything like that. But if you have any questions that you think of after the fact, I did drop my email in the chat, so please reach out. And we're really excited to, yeah, kick this off in June. So I really hope to see some of y'all, yeah, sign up to register, and look forward to learning more about your work. Thank you, April. So sweet.
Thank you everybody for coming. It was good
Thank you,
to
everyone. I'm going to go ahead
Wow.
and stop the chat.
Have a good day.